Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Andre Wall and I am a 3D artist and educator. What I want to talk about today is 7 things I would do to ensure my success if I was entering the job market today as a 3D artist going into the video game industry. So let's go ahead and dive in and take a look at these 7 topics and explore why I would do these things. One of the major things I would do now that was not a thing when I was starting out is I would try and manipulate my social media algorithms to promote my success instead of hinder it. Social media is an amazing platform. It allows us to access information at the touch of a button, endless amounts of entertainment, and that also means endless amounts of distraction. It can be used as something to build us up if you subscribe to channels like Vertmode, which are giving you tutorials and discussing industry insights and how to be successful in this industry. Or they can tear you down if you're just looking at mindless videos of people trying to entertain you. So how can we manipulate the algorithm to be in our favor? Well, one unfortunate thing is to narrow our usage of social media to just specifically target things that help us grow. Now, this is unrealistic, but there are different ways you could approach this. You could create a completely separate account for social media that allows you to do that. So you could have a personal one for entertainment, but you could also create one for growth. So that is a strategy you could potentially employ. Now, how do we make the algorithm favor our interests? A major way is what kind of videos you watch if you're on something like YouTube or even TikTok or other platforms like Rumble. So what does that mean? Well, engage with industry-related topics, with tutorials, with art talks, and also be sure to subscribe to them. Some great resources as well are going straight for the software companies. So you could look up software-specific things to Maya. Autodesk has a great channel. If you check out Blender, we got Blender Guru. There's all sorts of different channels that specialize in things like ZBrush. And then you can go to conference channels as well. For games in particular, there's GDC, the Game Developer Conference. They have an awesome YouTube channel that I encourage you to check out. They have various talks from GDC. A lot of them are more dated, but they're still totally relevant. And there's a lot of great ones from art. And the cool thing about art is if we're not talking about the tech art side of things, it stays pretty darn relevant. It's also important to engage in other social media platforms outside of YouTube. A lot of people are opposed to social media, but it is a thing. It is here. And yes, it has a ton of negatives to it. I am not going to question that. But if used correctly, it can be used as a force of good. Facebook is an excellent example. Facebook, for me, has primarily turned into advertisements and 3D channels. You can join all sorts of 3D groups on there. You can get community going. You can get questions answered. So it can become a great machine to promote your professional growth. Another great platform to be on is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one of those ones that you're kind of expected to be on now for jobs. But an important factor of LinkedIn is it's also where people recruit directly from. So you will have recruiters coming to you, which is great. And you can also get connected into a more professional environment through LinkedIn. There's also specialized social media tailored to this industry. A great example is ArtStation. Even if you don't have any art worth posting, it's great to create an ArtStation account because you can get on their emailing list for all sorts of things. One of the major things is going to be their job posts, which are great to see. Even if you're not in a position to get a job, you can check out things like the requirements to get an idea of what you should be working on. Other things you can do is you can read through their articles. There are some great articles on ArtStation. They have their own educational library now, so you can check out tons of videos. And of course, you can follow different artists on there to help inspire you and help you grow along your journey. So none of this existed when I started out. Social media was in its infancy. Facebook worked as intended. You didn't see advertisements in groups. I don't even think groups existed yet. YouTube wasn't even acquired by Google. So showing my age a bit. But that is a major thing I would change. And as someone who was a college instructor for a decent period of time, it was one thing I noticed that separated me from a lot of my students is when I opened up my social media, It was like, oh, this guy works in the 3D industry. This guy does 3D stuff. And when they opened up their social media, there's a complete disconnect. You wouldn't even know that they knew anything about 3D. And that's something that you want to think about when you look at your own social media, is what does your suggestion say about you? What does your algorithm say about you? And sometimes it's not the greatest, but it can also be a good source to learn what you might need to change in your own life. So if I had to pick one of the number one things I would do if I was starting out my career again, is I would make sure I align my social media to my interests, to promote my growth, to help me along this journey, rather than distract me from it. So think about that. It can either help you grow or it can do the exact opposite. And in some ways, the power is in your hands. So keep that in mind as you move forward in your career. Coming from a background of education, this one probably won't surprise you, but one of the things I would definitely be doing is taking courses to improve my skills. This is, once again, one of those things that when I started out, there weren't a whole lot of options for. The internet wasn't exactly in its infancy, but the infrastructure to host courses online just wasn't there. Now we have amazing resources where you can get classes that are better than college level classes online for a fraction of the cost. One of my favorites is Udemy, and as you might be aware, we do have a Udemy page. We have courses up on Udemy, so you can check out our link to Udemy down in the description of this video if you want to see what courses we have up there. But Udemy is an amazing resource. There are tons of videos on any topic you can think of, and I highly encourage you to check it out. Even if you're not interested in games and you stumbled upon this for whatever reason, I've taken courses on there in things like cooking and how to help better develop curriculum for education, and of course, a whole slew of things related to 3D. Now, if you're looking for something a bit more targeted, QBrush is also an amazing website. I have not actually purchased anything through them, but their catalog for tailored content to the creative industry is impressive. It was founded by Mark Burnett, who is also a YouTuber and has an amazing YouTube channel that you should totally check out. It's primarily focused on illustration, but he has some excellent insights just in terms of how to represent things visually, and also some good insights into the industry. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is some of the benefits to taking online courses opposed to doing things like YouTube tutorials. The nice thing about online courses through something like Udemy is you create a library that you can refer to very easily and easy to access. It's also not fragmented into different URL links or having to save a playlist, and it is for the most part permanent, and it also is something that can be updated. So the thing about YouTube videos is a lot of the times they're created, they're released into the internet, and they're just forgotten. And one day this recording will be that. The other thing is sometimes they are curtailed, they're deleted, they're gotten rid of. So you might have an amazing set of tutorials and the person decides to take it offline or take it private for whatever reason, and you don't have access to that anymore. The nice thing about courses is that doesn't happen. Another really nice thing is the guided experience. There are resources and assets handed to you. There is a Q&A section that you can refer to if you need to. So it's just a little bit more of a complete and healthy environment than following a chain of tutorials on some website like YouTube. So there are some definite benefits to it. Of course, the downside is you do have to pay some money, but if there is one thing you should invest in your life, it is you, it is your education, and that is an investment that you always receive a return on. As an artist, we often spend a lot of time in our application of choice. So for 3D, maybe you're a Maya user, maybe you're a Blender user, maybe you're a Max user, maybe you're one of those strange Houdini users. Whatever you like, it's probably where you spend the most time. However, if you want to work in games, it is also important to learn a game engine. You aren't necessarily going to be working in the game engine, but it is good to understand how it operates, and it also expands what you can do. Speaking from my own experience, my knowledge of game engines has assisted me in my career. At the various studios I have been at, I have taken a role in some form or another working in the game engine, be it through the process of blocking in a level or implementing assets. So having that knowledge expands what you can do, and it expands your employability. Now, right now, as of making this, there are two leading game engines, Unity and the Unreal Engine. Both of these are worth learning. All of the companies I have worked at use Unity, and Unity actually has a pretty big share of the overall market. Unreal has a lot of benefits, especially if you want to access their scan library and their textures, but its methods of payout tend to make people favor Unity over that, which is kind of interesting, as of making this video to the best of my knowledge. So that could be completely wrong. I'm not really on that side of things, but it is what I have been told. So I'm just gonna go with it. Now, if you are looking to learn games, I highly encourage you guys to check out Game Dev TV on Udemy. I went through their courses to learn a lot of the stuff I know about Unity, and I highly, highly, highly recommend them. They are an amazing group of individuals. They create quality courses, they keep them updated, and I could not suggest anyone more. So check out their stuff if you are interested in learning the game engine side of things. They have some amazing courses in Udemy. So once again, one of the things I would focus on doing in addition to my art, so I want to emphasize that, not over my art, but in addition to my art, is learning the leading game engines. And you should learn both. You should pick one that you get the most comfortable with, maybe base that on the companies you're targeting. If you know they use Unity, focus on Unity. If you know they use Unreal, focus on Unreal and go from there. But be acquainted with both and be comfortable with both if you have to pick up one over the other. One of the major things I would do is I would try to get involved with game jams. And if you're not familiar with what game jams are, they're generally mini competitions that happen over the course of a certain period of time where teams get together with the goal of creating a video game in that span of time. The other thing I would try to do is try joining indie games that are in development to see if they can use my talent. So these are both excellent entry points that aren't necessarily jobs. So a game jam isn't necessarily going to pay you, and in some cases an indie game might not either, depending on the size of the indie game, the overall scope and budget. But what it is going to give you is experience, and I know there are a million memes out there about getting paid in experience, but the reality is you have to start somewhere, and experience goes a long way in this industry. Because if you made a game, you've made a game. It's really something you can talk about that does push your resume and does help you find work. Now, how do you find game jams? How do you find indie game studios? That is a good question. In my experience, they always found me. So having your portfolio up on ArtStation, it's a great way for people to find you if they need to recruit an artist, be it for an indie game, for an actual company, or even just something like a game jam. But outside of that, an excellent place to go is actually Discord. This is something I discovered a little bit more recently, but there are tons of amazing Discord channels out there that have sections for indie game developers and for people looking to get involved in game jams. Now, an amazing one I found is one called Working with Indies. They don't only have a Discord page, they actually have a dedicated job searching page. So for those of you who are just starting out and maybe looking for your first gig, this could be an excellent door for you to open to just unleash your creativity and join an awesome team. Some of the other ones I found I will throw down in the description. But Working with Indies by far has been the most interesting, the most insightful, and the easiest to navigate out of all the ones that I have joined. Another excellent place is going to be the Polycount forum. If you're not familiar with Polycount, it is a website that has been around for quite a while, and it is a website that is dedicated to the game industry. They have some excellent wikis, and if you take any of my courses or watch my tutorials, you will see me refer to the Polycount wikis because there are excellent information there. But they also have forums that people are active on, looking to join game jams, looking to bring on people to work on indie games or small projects, and there is opportunity to make money there. So if you're the type of person who is skilled, you know what you're doing, you're confident in your abilities, you just haven't had that break yet, this is an excellent way to be proactive, to go out there and look for people doing game jams, look for people working on indie games, and try and join those teams. So this is one of those major things I definitely would have done differently as a stepping stone to getting that first job, joining those game jams, and working on indie games. And remember, you can find these through things like Discord and through various forums like Polycount. So definitely check those out if you haven't done so yet. When I first started out, my first thoughts were to apply to all of the companies I love. One of my big goals was actually to go work for Square Enix, and I didn't quite think of the logistics of working for a Japanese company. Needless to say, I haven't worked there yet, and yeah, maybe one day. Now, where would I begin though if I wasn't targeting the companies I love? I would actually target the mobile industry. When I was first starting out, mobile games were a thing, but they weren't a big thing. You didn't really have a whole lot of 3D mobile games. You know, if any of you can harken back to the days of Farmville, they were kind of like that. They had a very particular quality to them. There's a lot of 8-bit games, but 3D wasn't really something that was big yet. Candy Crush Saga, I think that's it. That was the big one everyone liked back then. Nowadays, there are a ton of 3D mobile games, and not just that, the mobile games make up a majority of the share of the market. 60% of the entire gaming market is now dominated by mobile games. So yeah, it's one of those harsh realities that if you aren't someone who wants to work in mobile games, you only got 40% of the job market to target. So yeah, maybe consider otherwise. One of the things I've also noticed, being someone based in America, is a lot of the jobs in the USA seem to be in the mobile sector. There aren't really a plethora of jobs at studios making PC and console games anymore. A lot of that is actually being outsourced at a lot of the larger studios even. So it's one of those things where if you want to make art, you should probably start looking into the mobile side of things. And even at larger companies, if you think of something like Activision Blizzard, a lot of their development is also shifting towards mobile with things like Diablo Immortal and some of their other intellectual properties they have. Now, within this realm of things I would target, I would also target emerging industries. Right now, the emerging industries are augmented reality and virtual reality. Both of these actually tie into mobile as well, because one of the devices you access augmented reality on is the mobile device. So when we're talking about augmented reality, if you're not familiar with that, that's going to be things like Pokemon Go, where the real world ties into the virtual world. And this was the type of stuff I was doing at Blipped. It's a lot of fun to do. It has an interesting novelty to it, and it's one of those fields that's definitely going to develop. Virtual reality, I think more people are familiar with. It's where you put a headset on and you're able to map yourself into the 3D world. There are a lot of studios working in this realm, and it's a great opportunity to get your feet wet because a lot of them are smaller studios and they can't attract the larger people who have already been in this industry for a while simply through the amounts they're able to pay. More established companies, larger base, public, so they have funding, they're going to be able to offer high salaries to people who have been in this industry for 10, 20 plus years. But for people just starting out, you know, these smaller studios that are targeting things like augmented reality, virtual reality, things that haven't really been tried and true quite yet in the marketplace, they can't offer so much, so it's a great entry point. All right, so just to recap, one of the main things I would do is instead of targeting all those amazing AAA studios that I always wanted to work at, is I would target mobile companies, I would target virtual reality companies, and I would target augmented reality companies because there is a better chance you're going to get employed there. And it's a great way to get your foot in the door, to get experience in the industry, and it can lead you to working at larger studios. This next one might come as a surprise, but I would focus my job hunting efforts in non-industry oriented job sites. So there are a lot of great industry oriented job sites like ArtStation, Creative Cow, and tons of others that specifically target this industry. Those are excellent resources, but something I have noticed professionally is a lot of large studios tend to post for work there and tend to be looking for senior positions. So in short, there's not a lot of introductory opportunities that I find looking there. Now, does that mean you should ignore them completely? Absolutely not. But what I am saying is you shouldn't just focus on those, because there are other job hunting resources out there that could benefit you. So what kind of websites am I talking about? I'm talking about Indeed, Glassdoor, and the various other ones out there. In my personal experience, I have had the most luck with Indeed, so I will drop that out there. And the reason why these ones are good, especially if you're first starting out, is a lot of those people who are working in the mobile field, in the AR, in the VR field, they are going to be using these ones and not the art ones. And the reason why is a lot of the times it's an individual who is starting a company who's looking for these specific types of skills based off what they've been advised or what they've been researching, and they're not aware of those other niche markets specifically for art. So that's where you're going to find actually a lot of introductory jobs at these smaller studios. The other thing is a lot of the times these studios don't just make games. They also make other phone applications or other types of applications. So they use that as their go-to in general. So do not rule them out. If you have just been sticking to industry-related job hunting websites, consider branching out and looking at some of the non-industry related job hunting websites like Indeed. So this next one applies to 3D artists of all levels, regardless if you're just entering the field or if you've been in the field for a while. I would highly encourage working with a recruiter. I had an experience working with a recruiter recently, and it was the most pleasant job hunting experience I have had. Now, I will disclose the recruiter came to me, I didn't come to them, so I can't speak to the process of recruiting a recruiter, but I can say that being recruited by a recruiter was amazing. I worked with a recruiter from Artisan Talent, so excellent place to look. I would highly recommend them if you need a lead, if you're looking to work with recruiters, because like I mentioned, amazing experience with them. They handled all of the business correspondences, they scheduled the interviews, they even negotiated the salary. So just awesome all around. Now, when should you do this? I don't have the best advice there, because like I mentioned, my experience was a bit more recently. So I wasn't at the beginning of my career. I, had experience under my belt. I had a decent looking portfolio. So I had a reason for a recruiter to reach out to me. But if you are going towards the route of working with a recruiter, you want to make sure that you are someone worth recruiting. So you want to have established a portfolio first. Make sure you can show them you can do what you can do. It's also an excellent place if you have some experience. What could experience mean? Well, maybe you've graduated from college. That could be a good place to start. It gives you a portfolio, gives you some sort of credential to stand on. Other things, like I mentioned previously, if you worked on an indie game, you've worked at a small studio, you've done game jams, that's something that could give you a proven track record to be worth advertising to companies. It's also important to understand companies are looking for people at all skill levels. You're not going to hire the most awesome game artists in the world to be making the simplest things like crates and boxes and other just generic things that are going to fill space. You're going to hire them for the overarching big features, the things that are going to make the game really stand out. So there is room for artists of all level on just about any production. So even if you're in the beginning stages, as long as you understand the process, you can make an asset that looks good. It looks like something that could fit the game. You are employable, so just be mindful of that. It can be good to work with a recruiter even at that stage, but make sure that you do have something that's worth recruiting, right, before approaching a recruiter. So that is a major thing I would have done differently, is sought out a recruiter, not tried to do this on my own, and utilize those services. Because like I mentioned, having done it recently, my goodness, was it an amazing experience. And I cannot recommend it more. So that is a big one. All right, so that's going to conclude the list of 7 things I would do differently if I was starting out my career today as a game artist. I hope you found this list informative and walked away with some good resources that can help you along your journey in becoming a game artist. Remember to check out the description for links to some of the things I mentioned in this video. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to like and subscribe for more of our future content.